Today we're talking to Aaron Tier. Him and Tiffany, his wife, have struggled historically with finances. They finally got over the hump, and we're going to break down how they literally spent everything on credit cards to literally choosing a life they want to live and deciding when they're going to actually retire. So with that being said, let's introduce Aaron Tier.
Budgetdog, 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 Budgetdog.
Welcome to Money on My Mind, hosted by Brennan Schlagbaum, a corporate CPA and founder of Budgetdog Academy. After going from $300,000 in debt to becoming a self-made, debt-free millionaire by age 30, Brennan has helped thousands of people crush debt, grow wealth, and master the art of money management. Discover actionable advice and practical strategies to unlock your own financial freedom. Stay tuned for Money on My Mind and start taking control of your finances in 3, 2, 1.
Man, I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, excited to be here. I'll tell you, this is my, first podcast. So,
Yeah, no, it's really casual. I mean, like, we're already recording technically. It's just a general conversation. My goal with this is to make sure that we get like the background of your situation and how you got to where you're at today, which is in a good spot, right? So I'm trying to show people, the everyday person, that this is doable. This is very, very practical stuff to do, is if you want to do it, right? So that's kind of the whole goal about it. But man, tell me, let's start off here. Talk to me about kind of how you grew up with money. Let's call it 5-year-old Aaron or 5-year-old Tiffany. That is your wife. What was the money conversation like at the house?
we couldn't afford anything. Everything was, that's too expensive, or I don't specifically remember my dad saying it's not in the budget, but that was essentially what he's saying. And you have to understand, my dad is 64 years old and is still the exact same way. He definitely makes, 6 figures and not 100 grand, like strong income, and he still behaves the exact same way. So, for us, it was, we did with, I don't want to say did without, because my parents did a good job of, not doing without, but anything extra, we couldn't afford it.
What, growing up, like for himself, did he come from a really poor family? Was there a reason that he was kind of like that? Was that just his personality? Where did that come from?
I think they grew up that way a little bit as well. Granted, there were 4 kids, and now we're talking about 60s. My grandfather was a state trooper. My grandmother was, bookkeeper somewhere. But also, what doesn't help is my dad's degree is in accounting. So after he graduated, he felt it was more important to go to work than go get his license. So, and it's to this day, now that we're older, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you messed up. You should have gone to get your license. So he's not an accountant, but he behaves as an accountant. So
yeah, those the whole people are weird, aren't they?
I know, man. The bean counter moniker absolutely works for him.
Yeah, and so obviously growing up, you were subjected to that a lot. And so, do you think that played a role in how you viewed money, or do you think it kind of maybe even took you the opposite direction? You spent money as kind of like almost like defiance.
A little bit of both is the right answer, I guess. And I say both because, I went through a spending period recently, we'll say, I don't know, from 20s up until, last summer. But in the back of my head, I could still hear him. On the back of my head, I knew that maybe like, hey, dude, don't put this on a credit card, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I knew the rules, if you want to call it that. But, I was young and things were shiny, and I could do it. I've always had good credit. So like, yeah, I'll just put on a credit card.
Sure. What was that big moment that you were just kind of like, this can't happen anymore. This has to change.
So because of the company I work for, they do profit sharing, right? So you can call it a bonus, profit sharing, whatever you want to call it. The branch that I work for, since I've been there over 7 years, we've continued to grow in both sales, gross profit. We have a good business and got a good group of people. So the last few years, my profit sharing has continued to grow along with that. So I want to say the second or third one I got, I think the third one I got, without risk of any one of the 500 branches I work for hearing this, because that's pretty closely guarded. I don't mind telling you what I got 4 years ago or 5 years ago. it was like 18 grand. And we had, a little bit of debt, credit card debt, 6-7 grand, something like that. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to pay that off first. And so then it was like, cool, we're out of debt. I think at that point our cars were paid off. Or no, my car was paid off. Hers was not. So it's like, I started to get this feeling of, wow, it's nice not having to pay a credit card bill every month or a car payment every month. And then, life happened, things happened, and here we are again. I look up and we're back in credit card debt. Christmas comes around, whatever the case, we go on vacation, and Tiffany as well, she never got the credit card debt that I had. But I'm paying off both my credit card and her credit card. So after 2 or 3 years in a row of getting my bonus and then sending 10 to 11 grand of it out the window immediately to pay for credit card debt, it was kind of like, hey, we've got to stop this, because it's, you know what I mean? We're taking bonus money and just throwing it out the window.
What was that conversation like at home? Because obviously a lot of people struggle talking to their spouse about money. Was it smooth? Was there rockiness to it?
No.
There's got to be a story behind this one.
Yeah. At that point in life, in our marriage, money was very rough. Those conversations were all rough. It was always, we're doing this and we should be doing this, or why are you spending that? When on the backside of it, I was kind of doing the same thing, just it wasn't, it was a little more, I don't want to say hidden because that's kind of a dirty word, but it wasn't out in the open. So she didn't necessarily know what I was doing, but I knew what she was doing. So it's like all of them were really tense. They were really tense. And it was defensive because it was more like I was accusing her of something. Sure. Not intentionally, but that's what it came off as. And she took it, she got defensive, thinking, oh, well, what am I doing that, you're accusing me of?
Yeah, and you guys have done a ton of work, right? Like, obviously, since that time, I remember you posting specifically, this is the first paycheck and I talk about it all the time, this is the first paycheck where everything was automated, we had everything in line, feels a lot better. I know, where's Tiffany's, where's her spot in the let's call it the money relationship or the money role now? Is it you kind of run the show and she kind of like trusts you? Is she very involved? What's that like? What's the dynamic like?
So for a while there, she was managing the day-to-day, the mortgage, the electric bill, the cell phone bill. She kind of pays those things. And for the point we're at now, I'd let her, when I tried to say, hey, I'm going to take that back over. I'm the business major. This is my thing. My dad's the accountant, right?
Yeah.
Which is hilarious that your program really helped her understand, like, she has control. Heather was amazing, and Heather kind of helped point out to Tiffany, hey, you just want to let go of some control here, which when we automated everything, that was a big deal for her, because she felt like she was losing control and not in control of it. But so where we came to an agreement was, rather than argue with it, I'm like, hey, you know what? You've done that for some years. We'll keep doing that. Any investments, any retirement, any future things is all me, because not only does it interest me and I enjoy it, she wants zero part of that. Like, she doesn't want to watch, she doesn't want to get market watch updates on her phone, or, she doesn't want to buy the ETFs every payday. Like, she doesn't want any part of it. So we found a middle ground of where she can contribute, I can contribute, and it's all good. It took a while to get there, but that's kind of where we're at now.
Do you guys have joint accounts? What's your stance on that? I know a lot of married couples have different thoughts.
When we got married, obviously we had joint accounts. We never really joined. And then, let me get this out of the way, Brennan. This would make everything a lot easier than me trying to dance around it. Okay. I am a sober alcoholic. I've been sober for almost 3 years. So
congratulations, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So in the beginning, when we got married, that's when all this was kind of coming to a head, right? So we kept separate accounts because she didn't really trust me. I didn't want her to know what I was doing. I was debating whether I told you that or not today, but it'd make this whole conversation a lot easier.
Yeah,
so
I think it's good to be transparent like that.
It explains a little better why we have joint accounts, why she was in charge of the finances for a while there, like all these things. Now it should line up a little bit.
Sure.
A little easier to understand. So, we never joined accounts, and if we're being honest, she didn't trust me there for a while. So now that we are to a way better place, I don't know. We talked about it. We've brought it up from time to time. We have it, and especially once we started your program, and you guys kind of, I don't want to say preach one account, but kind of, you know what I mean? It's mentioned, that's what you guys do and what other people do. We brought it up again, but it's almost one of those things like we've kind of got it rolling pretty smoothly now. So we're not stressed to change it, I guess.
Yeah. And what you mentioned was very powerful. And I thank you for the transparency. I wonder, and this is a question to you, over the last 3 years when that whole situation has changed, have you seen other areas of your life develop, whether it be financially, whether it be fitness, whether it be health or whatever the case is, because of the decision you made to put down, obviously stop drinking?
Yeah, I can't, we don't have enough time, honestly, for, the finances, honestly, were kind of the last big straw that we had, to really wrangle in. Yes, my relationship with my wife, my son, my family, my job, health, you name it. I mean, it's my life is all around better. Like, there's not a question. There's no doubt. And people think, they think, oh, you have liver and kidneys when you don't drink. That's the biggest thing people think of. They don't mention sleep. They don't mention your skin. They don't mention your eyes. They don't mention all these other things that your body regenerates and recovers. Like, people just think liver and kidneys, but it's 100% health. And this is not exercise has nothing to do with it. You throw exercise into it, obviously you're leveling up even more. But yeah, man, every aspect of my life is better. That's the easiest way I can put it.
That's awesome. And I see that a lot, right? Like, whether it be starting with fitness, starting with finance, doesn't matter where you start. But I think once you fix one thing, the next thing naturally comes as the secondary, benefit. Obviously, we have a little one on our hands. What has that transition been from a money perspective? Saving, I know you mentioned 529s, things like that. What are you guys doing to help them out?
So currently we've got a 529. I've had that for a while. I've had that started for a while. Maybe a year before we joined Budgetdog, I finally got Tiffany to contribute to that as well. So now we're both contributing to that. We also have a taxable brokerage account for him as well. And I just started that for him, I don't know, a few months ago. It was kind of like, hey, cool, we got our Roth set up. We still had his 529. And that on the 529, you guys, I think it was a Monday night conversation you had and Aaron was on it with you. And you guys kind of went through A to Z pretty much. So that kind of kickstarted us to discuss the college conversation. And what I found, I had no idea of this. We both went to college, both graduated, blah, blah. My end of high school college experience and hers were completely different. She didn't know that you could get scholarships. Like, she didn't know that because her parents were Air Force. They traveled around a lot. Like, she didn't know that was an option. And so I'm like, hey, what do we want to pay? And then what is he going to be responsible for? Which I loved your guys' outlook on that. And Tiffany was like, we're going to pay for it all. I'm like, hey, wait, whoa. But the thing is, it ended up being, we towed that line in that conversation. We towed the line from it really running off the rails. Yeah. And I had learned enough to just be quiet for a minute and let her process. And then she processed and we kind of met back in the middle and the conversation continued. Because I had, I don't know, 4 or 5 scholarships, I think, when I went to college, and she didn't know that existed. And then, but we were able to have a conversation instead of an argument about it. You know what I mean? And we came to a agreement of, hey, cool, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And we live in Texas, so I was using the calculator link that you sent, and I put in UT, I put in A&M, I put in UT San Antonio, which is where we are. I put in all these Texas schools. Like, hey, we're in agreement. Hey, you go in Texas, we've got you up to, it's about 70%, and the other 30%, we'll help you figure out how to get there. So, and then as far as the taxable brokerage account, that's new. We are adjusting. I'm adjusting the amount we're contributing to it as far as going up. I kind of did $50 here, $50 there for a few checks. And now I see where my breathing room is. And that's one of the areas we're about to increase.
I love it, man. We're going to be in Austin, pretty close to San Antonio. I think it's an hour away or so.
What part of Austin?
All I know is Wanderlust is the bar that we're going to be at. It's going to be an event. It's probably, I would assume it's an hour or so. It's downtown Austin.
Oh, downtown? Yeah, that's depending on time of day. It's about an hour. Austin used to be really, really cool, man. Back when I first moved here, before it exploded like it did. It's still a cool place.
I like it. I was there 3 years ago for my brother's bachelor party. I think it's a nice place so far.
It's an awesome place. I remember what it used to be when the traffic, before it got to what it is, and you can still have fun. You just got to plan accordingly. You know what I mean?
They say it's like the Silicon Valley of Texas now.
Kind of. Yeah. And now they're exploding outwards. They're branching out of all the little counties around. My sister lived there a few years ago, and I'd go see her. Obviously, we live right on I-35, so it's not. Yep. It's nothing for me to jump on 35 and be there quick. And she said they called it the crane community because of all the cranes you have downtown building.
There were so many
high rises there. Yeah. The only problem with Austin is they exploded so fast, their infrastructure couldn't keep up. So now they're building roads and everything to try to catch up to it. And it's just, all they just blew up really fast.
Yeah. It looks like a cool city, but we'll be there March 15th, actually. So good stuff. So talk to me about your next goals. What's the big thing on your agenda? You and Tiffany have, obviously, probably a lot of financial goals. Let's kind of break down those.
Okay. The biggest one that I have is, and I mentioned this to you before, is we have a taxable account for our son. We also have a brokerage account for us. And so my goal is, because of the bonus structure I have at work, my goal was to put 10, 12-ish grand away in that every year for the next 5 or 6 years. And that's to purchase our second home. Keep this as a rental. And now all of a sudden, we look up 5, 6 years from now and we have a rental property. We have, we do not live in our forever home. Don't get me wrong. This house is great. It's our first home buy, all that kind of stuff, but it's not the forever home. She has due from, her dad's a real estate agent, so he had around 2008 had some issues with rental homes, and that was kind of her last memory of rental property was her dad. And so she was absolutely against it at first, and then I think I've got her to a comfort level, and it was our accountant. We've got a great accountant. He retired from the IRS. His wife is a tax attorney, and she retired from the IRS. So we're in a good place with those two. And he told me, when I went and saw him a few weeks ago, he just said, "Man, you guys are in such a better position than when I met you."
Loved it.
Because when we first met him, I had some, for other reasons, not necessarily my fault, but I was in the middle of them, some IRS concerns, and she was, had come out of a divorce and was in a bad spot. So now he sees the brokerage accounts and he sees, all the retirement stuff, and he's like, "Man, you guys are I told him about the rental plan, and he said, "Dude, keep doing that." He said, "Stick to your plan."
Yep.
So that's the biggest one, but and honestly, sorry,
go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Another part of the plan is sticking to the plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From where we've come from, I was just telling her, last night, I think I'm like, dude, compared to where we were in July, like I felt, I've told you this before. I felt like we were kind of blindfolded, walking through the desert. Like we weren't in a ton of debt. We were making decent salary. But I just didn't feel like we were doing what we could have been doing to better position ourselves. So now here we are, 8 months later, and totally different situation. Totally different.
Love to hear that, man. I talk about all the time the Henrys, right? The high earners, not rich yet people. And we see a lot of that, right? There's somebody that's making good money, but they're just like kind of in this limbo land. They can't move anywhere, and they're not really making any progress. And they're actually losing money by the second to inflation because they're
right.
in their bank account and all this stuff. And I'm like, if you just focus your attention on building wealth, it should be super easy and automated and stuff like that. So great topics, obviously, already. What would you tell somebody that's sitting on the sideline? They're looking to fix their financial situation. They're nervous. They're worried. They don't know what to do. They feel stuck, whatever that is. How do you get unstuck? What would you tell somebody?
First of all, you have to know that the answers are out there. Like there are resources. There are ways you can change your situation. And the second part is, man, you've got to take the jump. I know it can be scary. 100%. I know it can be scary. I've shared before, I met this dude on Instagram who talks about finance stuff and started messaging him, and, here we are. It was a little bit of leap of faith, and I had to convince my wife to come along for it. But there's resources out there. It is a little bit of work, but it's 100% worth it. Like absolutely worth it, because there's things that have especially come up lately in our lives where I realized this last week. We're just not stressed about money anymore. Like, and we are not rich, wealthy, any of the words you want to use to describe it. We're just in a position to where we don't stress over simple things like, we went on vacation a week ago to Colorado, and we saved for it. Like, we saved for it. We actually brought money back, and we put it right back in the high yield savings account. Like, we got back and we signed my son up for baseball, and we were late. Dad failed. That's my fault. So that was $200. And then I said, go get your baseball glove. And he's 6, about to turn 7. I bought him a glove 2 years ago. He couldn't get his hand in it. So it's like, okay, got to buy a glove and cleats. Get in the truck. Then we get to practice the first day, and every kid he had a bat, but his bat was too small because he's changed shoe sizes 2 times in the last year. So cool, get you a new bat. And then all the kids had helmets. They don't do like team, like, you remember the bag of helmets, like baseball?
Oh yeah.
Sure. They don't do that anymore, dude. Everybody's got to have their own.
Coach, so I always had I had to carry them in.
You had to carry it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore. Every kid has their helmet. So I'm like, I'm going to get a bat and a helmet.
Inflation's hit a little hard, hasn't it?
I'm telling you what, man, Little League is also affected. But we went to the store and bought it, and then, no, we didn't buy the most expensive things, but that's when I realized it was like, hey, wait, we went and were able to do this without thinking, dang, I have to put this on a credit card, or dang, do we have to pull this out of savings, or dang, where are we going to get this from? Like, the stress relief that we both feel is, you can't measure it. You really can't measure it. And it's, because I remember where we used to be and where the stress of money came in, and the tension between the two of us, we've never had a problem, paying the mortgage or the electric bill, but then it's anything extra after that, like, dang, we can't do that, or dang, put it on a credit card, or the fact that we don't have to do that anymore, and we don't have to put it on a credit card and go back into debt. It is a freeing feeling. Like, the word free comes to mind a lot because we're not stressed over it anymore.
Love to hear that, man. There's an incredible amount of, I always explain this to people when they get on a financial plan. It's not even about like the actual destination. It's about being able to see the destination. When you can see that in the future, and your cash flow right now, and you know how to get there, you feel better instantly. So it's like, yeah, you might have a millionaire goal in 20 years, or you might have a retire early goal in 25 years, but you can see that, and it's not as daunting because you actually know. And the fear of the unknown is always scary. If you don't know
100%.
What you are doing, you're living in a scary world, and every single day that takes a toll on people. And so I always explain, like, systematic planning where you can control your life, because there's a lot of uncontrollables. I'll speak to my, obviously Logan's situation with Dravet syndrome. We couldn't control that, but what we can control is our healthcare and the ability to get our access to healthcare and stuff of that nature. So it's always about controlling your controllables. And I think finance is a massive piece of that puzzle. And I think that's exactly what you're already experiencing in such a short time frame.
Yep, absolutely. And I mentioned to you too, she had a medical situation a few months ago. It was about $7,000, and she didn't know what to do. She said, how are we going to do this? We had to do it. Like, there was no, sure. It wasn't life or death. It wasn't life threatening, but it needed to be tended to quickly. We weren't in debt. We have no debt. And I said, hey man, put it on a credit card. She goes, what? And I said, I know that's against what we talk about, but time is an issue here. You get your yearly bonus in December. This is probably the last year we're going to get a tax return. And then I get my bonus in March. And I was like, bam, there it is. And, you just mentioned it about, tangible goals. Like, when you write things down or you put them on paper, all of a sudden they're not as scary. You can see them, you can almost touch them, and it becomes a lot easier for you to get your arms around, like, hey, okay, wait, here's the number. Now, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? What am I going to cut out? What am I okay to spend? Putting them on paper rather than just in your head, it has a lot of power to it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on here today, sharing all your insights. Any quotes that inspire you to continue this journey on a daily basis?
Wow. I wish I'd have thought about that before we got here.
Quotes, thoughts, people, anything along that nature that really inspires you to get up and do what you're doing.
Just because you put me on the spot, I'm going to revert back to, I included it on the questionnaire filling out for this because I heard someone say this to me one time, and it was the pain that I was in outweighed the fear that I had to make a change. And so what that meant to me was, we were in a situation, we were tired. Like, we were tired of the same old thing happening and not changing. And that eventually outweighed the fear of us taking the steps, making changes, reaching out for help. Honestly, that's what your program is. You reach out for help, and you guys have, you've hit it out of the park 100%. Like the amount of knowledge and info that you guys have and have compiled is pretty, and the community too, man. The community you built is pretty special. Everybody in there, because it's a group of people who are in very similar situations, and all want to try to do better and are pumping each other up to each other, to have each other do better. When I first saw the community, I'm like, oh God, who's gonna drop, someone's gonna drop some hateful stuff, and I have not seen it. I have not seen it since.
I don't think I've ever.
Since July.
First off, I don't accept that. But number two is like, I've never even seen it. Like, I don't think it's even the culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the culture at all. It's a bunch of positive people trying to do the right thing and sharing info. It's an information sharing system. So it's hats off to you, man, because it's pretty awesome.
Amazing to hear, man. Well, I appreciate everything you've done, and I want to keep seeing the journey grow, man. So thank you for coming on today. Yeah,
absolutely. Can I tell you one win, community win?
Absolutely. Let's do it. So March 15th is our bonus day. That's company Christmas. That's kind of what we call it. So that's next Friday, obviously. Well, I managed the sales team that we have. That last year was the first year that I've managed the sales team. I was on the sales team for 6 years, and now I manage it. So I had the meeting yesterday, and it was not what I expected. They've always been great bonuses, and I was expecting, maybe a 12, 15 grand bump in what I got last year, and it was 170% over what I got last year. Wow. My boss put me in a new tax bracket yesterday. Wow. So 170% increase from last year. Yeah. So, and this is where you come in. This is where you come in, because we have, we started our Ross, I think August or September last year. So we have about $1,400 left. We're contributing to 23 still. So sure. The goal was, hey, we'll continue contributing 23. When I get my bonus, I'll max out 23, drop a little something in it for 24. We'll continue this year out. I'm going to max out 23 and 24 for both of us next week. Wow. Yeah. And then, you're way ahead of the schedule. Yeah. I told my boss, I said, dude, I told him about the plan in the rental house. And I said, man, my goal is to drop 10 to 12 in it, for the next 5-6 years. And, you're changing that plan. And his words to me were, he said, keep your 5-6 year plan, but just pay for the house in cash. And I thought, okay, smart ass. I didn't think of it that way. But now we're changing things. The Ross are maxed. We're moving all that we were contributing to the Ross into 401ks for the rest of the year. And it's, instead of putting 10 in the brokerage account, I think it's going to be 30 is the minimum. Geez, that's a huge goal, man. That's literally life-changing right there. It really is. So 3 years of my plan is going to be taking place in the first year. So, that's just kind of... So this happens all the time. Like this, I can't explain how many times this happens. Like somebody gets intentional, somebody all of a sudden, like I can't say like this just happens with people, but it just seems like it does. Like I know our initial plan was 12 years to pay off our debt. It turned into 5 years. Your exact same situation is right here. And I see this with a lot of people just trying to do better. It's like stuff finds you when you're looking for it. Yeah. It's a weird thing I've discovered in the universe. When you do the right thing and you work hard at something, a lot of times it just kind of falls your way, Life still happens. Life is life. But I still get punched in the face every day. Yeah, we all do, man. We all do. Dude, but it's funny that's awesome. It's funny that we're not like, cool, what are we going to go buy? It's like, exactly. I'm going to go buy a new set of golf clubs, but I was going to do that anyways. So, but now we're taking care of all these things in a row first. And once all that's taken care of, then we can go, mess around with the rest. But that's the mindset change. That's the mindset change. That's huge, man. Super proud of you. This is really cool stuff to hear. That's the first time I heard this, so that's good. Post that in the community. That'd be a really cool win. People would love that stuff. That will for sure. Man. Well, I appreciate you guys and everybody else. We will see you in next episode. Awesome. Thanks, Brennan.
You've been listening to Money on My Mind with your host, Brennan Schlagbaum. If you found value in today's discussion, share it with someone who could benefit from it too. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so you never miss a money mastery tip. Until next time, stay passionate about your financial journey and keep taking bold steps towards your money goals.